Hey, how do I get my picture here?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
What's up, player? Gil Park, 3-point champion.
They didn't even have a three-point line back then, brother. Okay? They hadn't even thought of it.
What's up, Brad Altman booking extraordinaire? What you got there? Oh,
I'm
you're not
wearing a
you're not
I'm
a
wearing the
Caleb fan, are you?
this is a Bears cap.
I know Caleb. What's his name? Caleb, the quarterback.
I have no idea, man. Come
Williams.
on.
All right, whatever.
Oh, the rookie.
Yeah, for number one pick. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I have no idea. I've never seen him play. I'll see him on Sunday. I'll see him on Sunday ticket.
But your hat looks great.
I love this hat. I got it in Vegas at Caesars. They have a shop there called Lids that
Oh,
you see a lot in airports. And I saw this Bears cap in. I'd never seen one like this, so I was like, "Dude, I got to get that."
dude, compared to the last time you were on this show, you look incredibly, massively better.
Thank you, bro. I've had I well, let's see. Since the last time we talked,
Yeah.
I died,
Oh no.
and they brought me back. I had
Wait, hold
cardiac.
on, Brad. You cut out. The last time we had you on, what happened?
Since then,
Yeah.
I had cardiac arrest.
Wait,
And,
heart attack?
no, heart
Like,
stopped. No, like dead, like dead.
how long? Did they time you?
Well, I never asked how long. That's actually a question I should have asked. I know when I woke up, my wife was crying,
All
but
right, Bird. Hey, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. All right.
yeah, but anyhow, and they did a heart procedure on me, and uh, it's worked because I feel great, and it's now been a let's see, it would have been a year. It had been last July
Yeah.
when this happened, so it's been about a year, and I'm back. I'm swimming an hour and a half in the pool
Oh,
every
yeah.
day, and I still got to walk with a walker, and
But
I'm
dude,
not
your
getting.
face, man, you're glowing. You got that Palm Spring glow to you. You look like Frank Sinatra.
Oh yeah, I'm like
Couple
Frank
pounds.
Sinatra. Yes, yeah. If only I could sing like you. But
Oh,
I do feel good, and I would say that, like, shape wise, like weight and condition wise, I'm back where I was in my
all right,
late
hold on.
20s.
Let's talk Gil Park. Are you Gil Park in shape?
Yes,
What?
yeah.
Mike Orfanos, Brad Altman.
Brad, how you doing?
Hey, how are you, Mike?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Brad, Bongo Mike is my new friend. Bongo Mike, Brad is like one of my oldest friends. He's like one of my biggest friends that I punched him in the face, I don't know, 30 years ago, whatever it was. I forgot what we were arguing about, but
But I'll
whatever.
tell you what, it was done with love.
Even if it's love, I don't want Pete punching me in the face. You ever see the size of that guy's hands?
I have seen the size of
Yes, he
his hands.
has.
They're about the same size as mine, and we both, I think, are pretty good at giving a punch and taking a punch.
All right.
That's right, brother.
I like it.
No, Bongo Mike, Brad Altman. Oh my goodness, music.
Oh,
We've
hey,
all started at zero on this. Bongo Mike, your band has been around 25 years, and I think Brad, you started booking like over 30 years ago. We
no,
have so much stuff to talk about.
I started booking in '88
Oh,
or
Jesus
'89.
Christ. Is
Wow.
that 40 years?
It's no, it's 35.
Okay, okay, 30. All right. All right.
Yeah,
So,
35 years ago, and I think I was telling you the other day, I was hanging out with our guys that we knew back then that helped us with the Cubby Bear, Jeff Quatnitz and Peter Katzis. who Jeff went on to bigger things, and
The firm.
the firm.
Well, hold on.
and
Hey,
he's-
Brad, tell Mike about the firm. What was at the firm, and then talk about Mike at Riv.
Okay, Pete, you mean Pete? Pete
Let's
Katz.
start with Jeff and then go to Pete.
Well, okay. So Jeff Quatness was in college when we met him, and he was going to Northwestern, but he
Or a
wound
fur
up
coat, like a fur.
he wound up becoming the manager of Material Issue back then,
Yeah.
and he got Jim
Jim
uh,
Elson.
Jim Elson.
Jim Elson. He got Jim his Polygram deal.
Okay.
Jeff was friends with Ed Eckstein, who's the famous singer Billy Eckstein's son, who ran Polygram at that time.
Okay.
And Jeff later went on to move out to LA and become one of the biggest managers of both actors and actresses as well as musicians.
Wow.
Throw some
So
names
he
out, Brad. Throw some names out. Come on.
Some names: Kelly Clarkson, Limp Bizkit, Korn. He was involved with Britney Spears. He was engaged to Brittany Murphy, that actress who passed away.
She killed herself.
I think it was drugs.
Oh, was it
Well, he
drugs?
couldn't have Jeff, so I understand.
Yeah. But he's done. But probably his biggest client over the years and continued to be is Ice Cube, who he got into movies. And he got him in that first movie with Mark Wahlberg that was about Desert Storm. I forget the name of it now. But
Three
now they're
Kings?
Three Kings. And now they're partners in a basketball league called the Big Three.
Okay.
That plays all over the United States, and it's all like ex-NBA players, and it airs on CBS every Sunday. And I actually, my wife drove me out to Anaheim 2 Sundays ago to spend the day with Jeff at the Big Three game and sit courtside with Pete Katzis and some other of our friends, the guy who produced Curb Your Enthusiasm and some other guys. And we had just an amazing day of, just
Catching
Jeff,
up. When you guys are catching up, Brad, what are you guys talking about? Johnny Cash, Brad. Johnny Cash.
We're not talking about Cubby Bear. As much as I love it,
yeah,
we weren't talking about Cubby.
Yeah, okay,
No,
all right, fair enough.
Yeah. We're talking about, and Jeff and I have stayed Peter and I have not, just because he's still a really busy guy with all the stuff that he does.
Now tell Bongo Mike about Peter, because he was at the Riv back in the day when we were hanging out.
Well, sorry. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh,
You're
okay.
good.
Sorry. So what Peter Katzis is most known for in Chicago is he's the guy who started Cabaret Metro.
Oh, okay.
He was the original booker of Cabaret Metro when Joe Shanahan opened it. So
Shanahan is not happy with you saying that, Brad. Continue.
No. Joe would be the first one to say that.
Okay.
No. Pete was his guy.
Okay.
I mean, and opening weekend at Cabaret Metro, Pete booked REM.
What?
Billy Idol.
What?
And so this would have been what?
Throw
85?
another name. I'll say what?
Divine.
What?
Yes. Yes. So Pete became, that was like his first claim to fame.
We went to Metro to Riviera.
He did go to Riviera, but he also he managed acts. He managed Stone Temple Pilots, some bunch of other acts.
Okay.
And then he went on to work at the firm with Jeff. And so they were together for, 25 years. Now they don't work together anymore. Pete moved on to other things, and he tours all over the world with different acts. And Jeff does his thing mostly from either New York or LA.
But Korn was his biggest thing, right? Korn?
The big name.
The biggest thing, I think probably Limp Bizkit in their
Okay.
prime was the biggest one. I'm forgetting other people because
I know we're old, Brad. I get it.
we're old. Yeah, I mean my memory's pretty good, but but that tour that he created for Korn that became such a famous tour, and that's the one I can't think of the name of.
I know that's what's sticking in my head. I have no idea.
But I know they would come to Tinley Park every year and whatever. But anyway, but he really was involved in so many things. Korn wouldn't have been his biggest. Oh, Backstreet Boys.
Oh,
yeah.
That's big.
Yeah. So when I opened up the club with a la carte entertainment, when I opened up White Star Lounge
in Chicago,
in Chicago on Ontario Street back in 98 or 99, one of the craziest nights we ever had was the night the Backstreet Boys were in town. And Jeff calls me on the phone that morning and he goes, "Look, man, what do you do in Chicago on a Monday night?" Which is a great question because it's really at the time that'll lead me to another story that involves Cubby Bear. But at the time, I said, "There's nothing to do in Chicago on a Monday night." I mean, I said,
Neo.
Yeah, but
all right, continue. Go
it's
ahead,
it's the Backstreet Boys. So right then, White Star had become the most popular nightclub in Chicago at that time. Probably was doing 2,000 to 2,500 people on a Saturday night, 1,500 people on a Friday, and the most beautiful crowd in Chicago. So I said to Jeff, I said, I could call Fred Hoffman and see if he'll let me open White Star on a Monday night. I said, we won't advertise it, but I'll send a text out to every girl I know and tell them the Backstreet Boys are in town tonight. And do you want to come party with them?
Did anybody show?
900 women showed up. I think I invited maybe 10 guys plus the Backstreet Boys, and we hung out there till we closed at 4:00 in the morning. So that was one of Jeff's. They were a big act for Jeff, and they were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really good time.
But it leads me to a quick Cubby Bear story that also involves a Monday night.
Oh,
we had booked a guy who had become a huge country star, named Travis Tritt.
And got a quarter?
Got a quarter, call someone who cares. Right. So, and it was right when that song had hit. So we booked him on a Monday and Tuesday night as he was passing through the area. And we sold out both those nights, I think, in probably 2 hours. And so it's a Monday night in Chicago. Sutcliffe flies in with his buddies. Okay. And Lieutenant Joe from Belmont and Western was there.
Yes.
And Tritt wants to go out. It's Monday night. He rarely has a night off in a town because usually he's playing somewhere and then he's traveling by bus to the next town overnight. But in this case, he's got that night. Sutcliffe's flight's not till 6 a.m. So I get Lieutenant Joe to take us out in his cop car, which, by the way, he's off duty and he's got a cop car from Belmont and Western. And I took Tritt.
It's not there anymore, Brad.
Huh?
Belmont Western's not there anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that. But
continue. It was then.
It was then. And by the way, they're looking for Lieutenant Joe. They can't find him or the cop car. Okay. He got in so much trouble for that. But he took us out and we started at Excalibur, which was open on Mondays back then.
Yeah.
And then we wound up on Division Street at
pick an hour. Who cares? Yeah.
We were at the Lodge, and Tritt's doing tequila shots out of the navel of Hooters girls. Hooters girls. But anyhow, it was that just the Monday Night Backstreet Boys story made me think of Trit. And what a and
Things
such,
do go on Monday nights. Things do happen.
well, occasionally, and and I'm still friends with Sutcliffe. I just met him last year out at a Dodger Cubs game at Dodger Stadium, and we hung out there. He was doing the broadcast for the Cubs, and we stay in touch other ways. But that was one of the most fun nights of my life.
Brad, Bongo Mike and I, we go back. This is a Chicago local music scene, and back then when we played, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't, iPhones and whatever, and it's a different scene right now. I'm in a band, Bongo Mike's in a band, and we're trying to figure out how to grab people's attention. It's hard, dude. How would you do it now? Or what have you heard? Like, what does it take to get people to show up at a joint, man?
Dude, I'm so out of touch.
Guess.
I think the last time I gave anybody advice, it was I'm trying to think.
We'll edit this out in post. Go.
No, I and I'm gonna stay away from my local band scene comments and not
in California.
No, in Chicago.
Oh,
and
Chicago, okay.
Because Greg Stephan, the great Greg Stephan chastised me the other
Greg
day.
Stephan, noted.
Yes. Greg Stephan chastised me the other day for saying something bad about, and I didn't really say something terrible. I just commented a little bit on the guys.
Bongo Mike, this is he worked at Cubby Bear for 18 months and it feels like 20 years. Continue, Brad.
Who did? Me? 18 months?
No. Greg Stephan. He worked at Cubby Bear 18
Greg
months.
Stephan is a legend. He brought Dr. Death in. Okay.
Speaking of doctors, hold on. Dr. John recently passed away. Moment of silence.
And John Mayo.
And John Mayo.
Oh,
New Year's Eve, Brad. Continue. That's where Greg Stephan stepped in. How did you do that show? Go.
But first, one quick thing about Greg Stephan. So a good friend of mine, Gretchen Erickson, who was very tight with Jim.
Material.
Right. Very tight with Jim Ellison, very tight with me. And we've stayed in touch over the years. And she told me a bunch of stories, which I can't repeat because I don't want to get sued.
That's right.
But she did, tell me about this Lincoln Avenue Fest and, those guys using the Material Issue name. And I have a tremendous problem with it.
Wait, the reissue guys? I thought that was all good.
They're not. No, now they're calling it Material Issue.
Oh, but even though when the guitar player flips his guitar, it says Jim. That's
Phil Angotti. Phil Angotti's the guy that took over, right?
I don't know who any of the guys. Listen, I knew Ted and Mike.
None of this stuff. Verify your facts. There's no fact checkers on the show. Go, Brad.
No. I'm just saying that I have an issue with. I have a problem with. It bothers me personally, having been Jim's roommate and good friend, and having toured with those guys at times, and having been one of the people that helped them get their start. It troubles me.
Hey, you know what, Brad? Let's talk about that because.
Okay.
That apartment was famous. Thank God that Bongo Mike, there's so many things we have to cover because Brad left the apartment. We'll get into the reasons later, maybe.
No, we don't have to read.
I was able to take it over, but that was on Eddy Street, 1124 Eddy Street. That was the Material Issue hangout. Jim Ellison and who are the other two boys? Ted?
Well, it was Ted and Mike really didn't hang out there a lot. But George gave me that apartment.
Yeah.
To live in.
George Lucas, owner of the Cubby Bear.
George Lucas, owner of the Cubby Bear. As part of our deal, he gave me that apartment, which I never asked for. He did it really a cool thing for me.
God bless
So
George. Continue.
God bless George. I appreciate it. And Jim was looking for a place to stay, and I invited him to. I had an extra bedroom there, and I invited him to come live there with me. And it was the first place Jim had ever lived outside of home with his mom. So, it was a big deal. It was a big deal. And we had a lot of great times there. And,
Was he a Niles guy? Where was he from, Brad?
one of those.
Yeah.
In that,
okay.
yeah,
Go ahead.
in that area.
Yep.
So, it troubles me that, 30 years after his death, whatever fame that they feel that they need at this stage in their life, I feel like they're doing it off Jim's back.
Yeah.
And I just don't like it. Listen, everybody can do whatever they want to do, and whatever's in their conscience.
No, they can't, Brad, because what you're saying is not right. I saw they just did a show. You brought up Greg Stephan. I saw him on Facebook, and he posted he was at that show.
Yeah, he told me he was going.
Yeah, and then I saw a picture of the guitar flipped up with Jim on it. And what does Gretchen say about all this?
She's extremely upset about it, but she's been upset about it. She's been upset about it for years, and so have I. And I've been upset about it for years. But it took it to another. I don't know if it took it to another level, but it.
Can you get her on? Can you get her on here, Brad?
Yeah, I can get her on here.
Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Yeah, absolutely, I can. And maybe she'd be willing to tell you the whole story that she's told me.
I mean, we're giving our opinions, and
I'm giving you the facts that she's told me.
All right,
but I'm not saying the stuff that's going to get me sued, even though I'd win the suit. I don't want to waste my time in court with these guys.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, but I think that they had, they were blessed to have been a part of a band with one of the most talented guys I've ever been around. Very talented guy who wrote all the songs, who was, it's not like they co-wrote the songs with him.
Chicago was hot at the time.
It's 2024 now. The guy's been dead 30 years. Okay. Is this absolutely necessary? Do you really? Fine. The material reissue bullshit. Okay, fine. Now it's a material issue. Now you're using the name of the band like Jim's still around. I'm sorry.
Can they give a portion of the proceeds to the parents or whoever? Is that better? I don't know, Brad.
Jim's mom recently passed away.
Oh,
so I don't know.
The state. What I'm saying is, if they do that, shouldn't they should give a piece of that money to them. Not that there's a lot of money, because there wasn't a lot of people.
How about just start your own band?
Well,
and
there's a name there. That's why, right? There's a name and a name recognition there. That's what they're using.
Well, I know. I understand why they're doing it. I just don't agree with it.
Okay. We actually opened for him at the Skokie Fest.
What?
But it was material reissue.
Yeah.
And they were on after us.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, I could live with that.
Yeah.
But the guitar player, he's got a beard, and he doesn't look anything like Jim.
Well, I understand. Listen,
does he sound like him?
I had an opportunity. I went to see the Eagles many, many times with all the changes. I started going to see him in like 74. And when I was 13 years old, I saw him, I think, at Alpine Valley. And I saw them before I moved from Chicago. So let's say 8 years ago, when Glenn Frey was still alive. Yeah. That's where I drew the line. When Glenn Frey died, I'm sorry, I'm not going to see the Eagles with Vince Gill and, whoever. it's just not, they didn't need the money anymore. They never needed the money, Don Henley and whoever. You can stop going out as the Eagles. It's the same issue I have with that. But more so because it's personal to me because of Jim.
Oh.
Brad,
And
you
I
did-
feel
you
it.
did-
I feel
Go
it's
ahead, Mike.
disrespect.
Go
ahead.
ahead, Mike.
I wasn't going to say anything.
No,
Brad,
I just
continue.
feel it's disrespectful, and I feel like
You guys were tight. I get it. I know that. I would hand Mike, Bongo Mike, I would hand Jim Ellison, I forget what it was, a Budweiser or whatever it was. It was a bottle of beer, and in the napkin, I would write 25 grand. I would hand it to him to give him a beer to see if he would take it. That was an offer to play. He played he played New Year's Eve. Who else was on that?
Urge Overkill
Oh
and Material
God,
Issue.
huge.
And that was the night Mike had food poisoning and was throwing up in a pail on stage. Mike Zelenko. And we had a party afterwards at our apartment. We had a post party
on
there.
Right behind the Cubby Bear, Eddie Street.
Right down the alley. Right down the alley where you and I once picked up a car and moved it.
It was a small car. I think
it wasn't right. No, I think it was a Fiero. But but it was a small car, but it's still impressive.
Thank you.
And if you remember, we had to move that car because it was in the way of Johnny Winter's bus. And we were afraid that somebody would touch Johnny and he wouldn't go on stage.
His rider.
It was in his rider that you couldn't touch him.
Wow.
Frankenstein.
Yeah. So there was a snowstorm and there was a Fiero stuck in a snowstorm behind the Cubby Bear in the alley. And we had to move it so the bus could get down the alleyway to bring Johnny Winter in.
All right, Brad.
But we don't have any good stories.
Oh, we do. Let's talk about jazz and country, Brad. How did you, whatever the hell you did back in the early 90s, Big John Howell, NUA, how did you?
I'm still in touch with all those guys.
Of course you are. Tell Bongo Mike, he's like, who the hell are you two? What did you do?
Okay. Listen, we're looking for ideas at this point. We've got Paul Seabar and the Milwaukeeans every weekend. Okay.
Love those guys.
And even before that, we had Jam Productions putting punk in there.
Hardcore shows.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
On Sunday nights.
Yeah.
Those were 18 and over hardcore shows. Yeah. So, we were doing Dick Holiday, and when we first got started, we were doing Dick Holiday and Paul Seabar and
Kathy Richardson.
Skank and Lizard. Okay. And things like that.
Yeah.
And then, we decided that we were going to start trying to do national stuff. Unfortunately, we were blocked from so much of that by Metro, by Jam. And, anything that was cool and alternative and wouldn't have mattered how much we offered those people.
They would go to Metro.
They were going to go to Metro, or they're going to go to Park West, or they were going to go to the Vic, or they're going to go to wherever.
Oh, the Vic, yeah.
Right. So we had to come up with other kinds of music that there was an audience for, but there weren't shows being done in the city of Chicago for that crowd. So the idea was, whether it was big blues acts or whether it was country acts or whether it was jazz acts, those were things where we didn't have to compete with Jam.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were successful, we would own those in this market. And we would be the only ones doing them, and we would set ourselves apart as a George liked to call it a venue, night venue or whatever he called it, entertainment venue.
Complex.
Complex. Yeah.
So you could get bands like the Rippingtons, right? Something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Rippingtons were one of the first. Okay. So I had relationships with US 99.
Mm-hmm.
One of my dearest friends was JD Spangler, who was the morning host of US 99 in their peak. And at WNUA, I had a number of dear friends at WNUA. And over time, we developed those relationships. And they would give me a list of people that if we were to bring them into Chicago, nobody was doing country music. Nobody was doing these smooth jazz acts in Chicago. So I coined the phrase, the smooth jazz concert series. Okay. And I just took this list that WNUA gave me and started booking these people. And you know, their ratings were very good at that time.
Yep.
And they blew them up. And they blew those shows up and made sure we had a full house for every one of those artists, whether it was Richard Elliott or the Rippingtons, or there's so many, and I can't
Brad,
think of them. Yeah.
May I interject?
Yes.
I have brought this up many a time, and I have been blunted on this. We had a very big jazz act playing.
Yes.
And upstairs above the Cubby Bear.
Yes, I know where you're going.
Tell the story. Go.
Okay. Story is one of the most famous jazz guitar players of all time. One of the most revered, John McLaughlin.
Oh yeah.
Was playing at he was actually not part of our jazz series of shows. We did another thing we called the Guitar Heroes series, which was, you know, Robin Ford, Eric Johnson, you know, all the guys that guitar guys loved and would come out to see. Okay.
Yep.
And John McLaughlin was one of those.
Yep.
Obviously a different style, but he was one of those. Oh, yeah. And believe me, I tried to get all the guitar heroes. I tried to get Les Paul. I worked on Les Paul for a year. Okay. So John McLaughlin's playing, and it's he's playing a acoustic guitar, and it's a quiet show, and it's a full house, but nobody's making a sound. But at that time, above the Cubby Bear, we had practice spaces where bands would rent out a space above the Cubby Bear, and they would practice. And there happened to be a band practicing that night, even though we told everybody we had a show and not to practice.
Yeah.
And this horrible band was practicing up there. Sounded terrible. I mean, just awful. Smashing Pumpkins.
Oops.
You know, so just so you know that none of us are geniuses. Okay.
But Brad, you and I went up there and pulled the plug on Corrigan.
Pulled the plug on him. Okay.
You guys suck.
Pulled the plug on him, and 12 years later, in front of White Star, I slapped his manager in front of Corrigan. So I've gotten Corrigan twice. Okay.
With hair, without hair.
His manager was being disrespectful at the door. So,
Continue.
you know, but anyway, so just so you don't think that any of us think of ourselves as these great evaluators of talent who, you know, I heard this band the first time and I knew they were going to be a star, and, you know, and I developed them and I booked them, and, you know, no. Thought the Smashing Pumpkins were the worst thing I ever heard in my life. And by the way, they were back then. Okay.
Well, above the Cubby Bear, they were.
They were developing their sound.
The acoustics were bad.
Brad, please tell Bongo Mike about Johnny Cash, how that went down.
Okay. Well,
that put Cubby Bear on the map. The reason I'm bringing it up, it brought Cubby Bear on the map. Continue.
Cubby Bear never wins National Nightclub of the Year from Polestar in '91 without Johnny Cash. It wasn't the only reason we won, but it opened a lot of eyes. Because, okay, how did those guys get that guy? And again, we had laid the groundwork as a viable country music venue by doing Vince Gill, by doing Travis Tritt, by doing, many of these other guys that would become big, big stars. So we were on everybody's radar at that point. But Johnny didn't have a Nashville manager. Johnny had like a New York, LA manager. So, they weren't Johnny doesn't play nightclubs. Johnny didn't play clubs.
Right.
And this wasn't just Johnny. This was Johnny, June, and his son.
The whole family.
This is the Cash family playing at a bar across from Wrigley Field. Okay. So this was not easy stuff. Yeah, the money, you had to meet the money. Yeah. Okay, which I don't remember how much
You had
it
to
was.
fit the tour bus in the alley.
Listen,
no moving cars.
the hard part was selling them on this was a place that Johnny would feel comfortable, and that it wasn't just some dumpy bar. It was a world-class music venue that also happened to be across from Wrigley Field and happened to be a bar. So, and then I had some people from Nashville call him, not Johnny, but his manager,
right?
Who I think his name was Lou Rubin, and say to him, "Hey, these are good guys, and they're gonna take, they'll pay you up front or half up front, whatever it was that we paid." And now, in retrospect,
yes,
I was thinking about this the other day.
Okay.
In retrospect, I wouldn't have done it on a day the Cubs were playing the Cardinals.
Oh no.
By the way, everybody, you have 90 minutes. Get the hell out of here.
I mean, it was, so it's a Saturday night in July, and we're doing a Cub game during the day, and we're doing 2 Johnny Cash shows at night. Sold out, so we got to turn it. So we got to turn 2,000 people. And that's not counting the baseball people.
It's not sober people.
That's right. Oh yeah. But one of the great nights, it'll go down as one of the great nights, I think, in my life, in the Cubby Bear history, Pete's life. I remember Jim walking in the back door, coming from the apartment. He brought a original 45 of I Walk the Line.
Yep.
And he got Johnny to sign it for him.
Wow.
And Al Jorgensen from Ministry.
I was going to go with Al. Let's see if your memory is correct, Brad. Go.
My memory is correct because he called me. He called me and said, "I want a DJ between shows when Johnny Cash plays." He goes, "I love it." And what was so great, Mike, about Johnny Cash was there was everything from 80-year-old grandmothers to 21-year-old rockers in that audience. Yeah. It really was, from A to Z, anyone who loved music was at this show.
He's a legend. He's a
legend.
A legend in a small club.
Hey, Brad.
What do tickets cost?
You brought up $25.
$25.
$25, 1,000 cover or 1,000 capacity. Hold on, Brad. Yeah. You brought up Al Jorgensen. That's not what I want to hear. He left, and then his wife had to call on the phone. Do you remember this?
No. No, because I was busy.
I had no idea who Al Jorgensen was. I had no idea what Ministry was. He kept hopping over the stage trying to get to Johnny, and I threw him out the back door. And his wife calls. His wife calls up.
You might have overreacted.
I did. I should have studied my musical history more back then.
But who would have known that? There's no way you'd have known. There's no way you'd have known.
He didn't
Listen,
have any earrings in, or you know
no,
what? We reach out to Al. He was way different back then.
yes, and that was another band that Pete, who started Metro, the music, and Riff, he managed Ministry. That was another band that he managed. So
the DJs, all that.
Yeah, I just sat next to Pete at this Big Three event in Anaheim. We both drove to Anaheim to hang out. I didn't drive, my wife drove, but we went out to Anaheim to the pond where the Mighty Ducks play, or now they're just called the Ducks. And went out there for this Big Three event, and we had just such a fantastic time, and told a lot of stories that I can't tell here. And
Bongo Mike, ask Brad Altman some questions, would you?
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I mean, like we're talking in the early '90s is when you were at Cubby Bear, and I remember going there and seeing, Maceo Parker and War.
Yes.
And I mean, I distinctly remember that tour because it was called the Funkified '95 tour.
We talking about Maceo Parker or War?
Maceo Parker with War. Maceo opening for War. Yeah,
Maceo. We did Maceo before that, I think.
Yeah.
We did it was the JB Horns.
Okay.
Was what it was called at that time.
The James Brown guys.
But you got to remember, I left in right after we won National Nightclub of the Year for '91, which would have been in February of '92. That's when I left. So, but there were shows booked well beyond that.
Oh yeah,
that continued, like Chuck Berry, and what I did was I brought Chuck Berry and his old piano player back together. They hadn't played together in 30 years.
Wow.
And put them on the same show together. Johnny Johnson put them on the same show together, but I never got to see that show.
Why?
Because I was by then persona non grata.
So tell me about Johnny Cash. You met him, right? You talked to him. Good guy?
Didn't talk much.
No.
No. I kind of got the feeling that he was not the same guy that he, in other words, had you met Johnny 10, 15, 20 years earlier, you would have met a completely different guy than that guy. He was nice, but you weren't going to get a lot out of him.
His daughter came over. Now, we have to ask my mom about this, Brad, but his daughter came over to my mom's house to give a box of chocolates, saying how much she appreciated her treatment at the Cubby Bear, because I was a manager at the time. I'm like, holy crap. I wasn't that good.
Well, listen, they had become a very religious family, okay, over the years. Once the drug abuse and other, stuff had stopped.
Yeah.
So he was just a different guy by that point. You weren't getting Johnny Cash at the Folsom Prison, okay, at the
Air Force.
Right. That wasn't the guy. So there really aren't any Johnny Cash personal stories to tell.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
But it was still very cool.
He's Johnny Cash.
Let's go to Chuck Berry, Brad. I took a little break and I heard about Chuck Berry. That little guy bonked his head on the sewer pipe in the basement.
I was not at Chuck Berry.
He was gone.
I know, but I'm just saying, I'm like, well, that's where Duff and Michael Yerke came in. It's a transition.
No, I think that was Camille and Norm Van Leer.
Oh my God, Brad! Please tell Bongo Mike about Norm Van Leer and his jazz expertise.
Okay, well let me give you some Norm Van Leer history. Okay, my best friend in high school, Brad Hoffman. His dad was Norm's agent when Norm played for the Bulls. So I knew Norm all the way back to then. And Norm and I were friends. We stayed friends until even after he came in with Camille and did the Cubby Bear thing. And when they took over for me, I stayed friends with Norm till he passed. I don't care about that. Somebody's going to replace you. And it doesn't matter to me if I'm not doing it.
It's a torch, Brad. It's a torch, right?
Yep.
Well, it's a torch.
What did you do with the torch that you had it at the time?
Right. And I don't care. I really don't. Those people everybody's got to have a job. Somebody's going to do the job.
For sure.
And, I'm not offended that later Michael and later Duff, and I know the Cubby Bear doesn't do music anymore.
Oh, yeah, I know that do.
DJs,
what do you mean?
Right?
Cover bands.
Cover,
but you know what I mean.
Not as much, no.
No. Well, wait. The Cubby Bear was National Nightclub of the Year. In other words,
hey, Brad, do cover bands. Last Rest.
The best nightclub in the country for live music in 91. Okay? Now, at some point after that no longer it didn't win another award after that. Okay? And at some point after that, which I can't tell you because I didn't pay attention. But at some point after, because I'm busy doing my own things. But I will say
Hold on, Brad. Hold on.
Yeah.
Talk about the reader picture. Come on. Fess up. Go.
No, it's
come on, dude. George is watching right now.
First of all, the man treated me like a brother. Okay?
Then give him a fair shake. What was your
He always gets a fair shake from me. And let me just tell you right now. Nobody ever talked bad about George Lucas in front of me and got away with it. And believe me, a lot of people tried when they were kissing up to me.
Yeah.
Okay? And try to talk shit about him. And it never went over with me.
Bongo Mike, what I'm addressing is there was a picture in the reader.
No, I'll tell the story. Okay. So when we won National Nightclub of the Year, Louis Lazar, who was the big gossip columnist for the Reader back then, wanted to do a cover story on me. The picture had nothing to do with now.
Wait, you are Cubby Bear winning nightclub venue of the year. That's the issue.
No, it had nothing to do with Cubby Bear winning nightclub venue of the year. He wanted to do a story about me. Partly because he was sort of in love with me.
I'm calling big bullshit. Continue.
No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. It became the story became about National Nightclub of the Year because we'd already been doing interviews for months before we ever won the award. So that became the bigger feature of the story when we won it because that automatically becomes the lead. So I'm not saying the story didn't become about it, but I'm telling you how it started. Okay?
Continue.
And what that was about. Okay? So, Louis may have liked me, and I may have utilized that for publicity.
Wait, what kind of utilizing, Brad?
Well, listen. But I utilized it for publicity, and there was really no well, let me go back just for 1 second. One of the things that George Lucas told me many, many, many years ago before we ever were successful doing music was he told me, I don't want any of the credit. All I care about is we make some money. And if we make some money, I'm happy. You can have all the credit. Okay. Now, we both know that's never the case with the owner of anything, whether it's the guy owns the shoe store.
How did we do last night?
Right. Whether the guy owns the shoe store, the Cubs, they all want the credit. Okay. And they want the money. But setting that aside for a second. So the problem really started when the reader sent a photographer over to the apartment we've discussed to take a picture of me.
Bongo Mike, the picture, this guy's wearing a cowboy hat with a big ass cigar. Continue.
In the hot tub, naked. Now, they only showed from the chest up.
Oh, it was a bubble bath too, I think.
And a bubble bath, which Jim put the bubble bath in. Because Jim used to take a bubble bath and then walk around the apartment with girls in the apartment with just the bubble bath on one particular area. He'd do that on wait. He did that on Halloween one year. That was his costume. Okay. So
wouldn't the bubbles disappear?
Well, eventually. Yeah. Eventually. So then the story comes out with the picture. And, that may have pushed George over the edge. Just slightly. Now, you'd think, hey, we just won National Nightclub of the Year. We're riding high. He's expanded the place. He's doing great. He's bought all these properties around Wrigleyville. His backyard is full of coffee cans full of cash. Joking. Yeah. But you think that, we did pretty good for him back then. Between you and I, we did pretty well for the guy. So you'd think that this could be something that could be worked out.
Well, Brad, hold on now. I got to throw my. You have management, you have promotion. Promote, and then you got to carry through what the promotions say you got to do. Okay. I had my say in there too, obviously, because I punched you in the face. But
that was years before that. That was years, but we were thick as thieves by then.
Well, okay.
We were.
I threw that out there. Oh, tell Bongo Mike about LA.
Oh, okay. Mike, this is a great story. Oh, I lost him, I think.
No, I think he's there. I think he went.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Bulls I'm a huge basketball fan. The Bulls I go to all the Bulls games at the time at the Chicago Stadium.
Yep.
And I said to Pete, I go, the Bulls are going to win the championship tomorrow night in LA. There's no way it's coming back here for a game 6. The Lakers, everybody's injured except Magic. Worthy's out. All these guys are out.
Yeah.
I said, we got to be there the night the Bulls win the championship. I had never been to LA in my life. I'm 30 years old, never been there in my life. Actually, I hadn't turned 30 yet, 29. And I said, we're going to go to LA and we're going to scalp tickets to this game and go to this game. And Pete and I got on with 2 other friends of ours, Jen Schenkel and another friend that worked for George.
Oh, name him.
I forget his name now.
That was Constantine.
No.
Well, that's what I told George who was. Continue.
No, the real old guy. He had to be in his 80s.
Constantine, that's his name.
Okay.
Continue.
I don't remember. Anyway, we fly Midway Airlines out to LA. And we get there mid-afternoon, I think. But we had to be back the next day because we had an XRT show at the Cubby Bear with Coco Taylor.
Coco.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we had to be back for that. So we knew we could only go for the night. So we scalp tickets. We get into the Forum. We see the game. The Bulls win.
Hold on. We're on the back wall of the Forum. The tickets we bought were on the back wall like this.
Right. But we ended up behind the bench. and we jumped on the court after the Bulls won the championship, back when you could still do that. And we had a Polaroid camera and tried to take pictures of ourselves. Not a Polaroid, a disposable
camera. Who has those pictures, Brad? Because I don't have them.
They never came out. They didn't have a flash. And by the way, my mom still has our tickets from that game in glass.
Wow.
She had it put in like a square glass container. Our tickets from the night Michael Jordan won his first championship.
Wow.
And Pete and I were there.
Yeah. And on the court.
And on the court, and went out partying in LA that night. It had never been to LA before in our lives, and managed to get a cab in Inglewood. No idea where we are.
In Inglewood.
We had no idea where we were.
Yeah.
We had no idea that LA is not like Chicago, and it's not a $5 cab ride anywhere you want to go.
Nope.
I think we probably spent $100 in cabs. And then we got on the first early morning flight out of LA and came back to Chicago to do that XRT. I believe that was our first XRT show.
Yeah. The XRT used to do a lot there. They used to do a lot of promotion.
Right. But for years they ignored us.
Wow.
And wouldn't work with us because of their relationship with Jam.
Yeah.
And we wore them down and wore them down and
Did you say Weiner? Did you say Weiner? Norm Weiner.
Norm Weiner and Lynn Bramer. And I'm trying to think who else. But we wore down XRT. And they finally told Jam, hey, we're going to start doing some stuff with those guys. You know,
didn't you guys also do at the Cubby Bear? Wasn't that when they did opening day over there too? That was a big broadcast for XRT.
It was around then.
Yeah. WGN. No, that was
WGN. Was that GN? I know Lynn. I remember years later Lynn doing them at Yahtzee's.
Yeah, they did WGN 7:20 a.m. and they went over to Yahtzee's whatever.
Yeah.
But I stayed friends with Lynn and a lot of those guys and stayed in touch. But
Brad, is Lynn the one that passed away?
He just passed. Yeah.
Yeah. Cancer, right?
Yeah. He just passed.
What a great, great guy.
He was a great guy. And nobody loved the Cubs. I thought nobody loved the Cubs more than me. I mean, there were years where I did not miss a single home game. Because remember, you didn't have to be at the Cubby Bear during the game. Nobody's in the bar. You could leave as soon as the game starts. And as long as you were back by the 7th inning to get ready for the after game crowd, you could go to the ball game. And I had access to tickets, but George also had his season tickets behind the on deck circle. So there was always a way to go to a game. You know,
and then Brad, let's throw in Terry Hemmert, the ultimate Beatles fan.
Oh yeah,
my wife loves Terry Hemmert. It's like her favorite DJ ever.
Sunday mornings, Brad. Go ahead.
What did you say?
I said Sunday mornings. You gotta have Terry Hemmert on.
Oh yeah. All
right,
but you know what?
Brad, let's throw in Saturday mornings throughout Sundays for Terry. Saturday mornings, what is the best year to feature on XRT?
91.
Mike, what do you think?
I know why he said 91. I would say, I don't know. Those was it Saturday morning flashbacks? I always like when they get into like the 70s, just because just get so much.
But pick one, Mike. You got to pick a year. Go.
Right, but that's the music I prefer too. If I'm going to pick what I like, it's what I grew up on.
Yeah, exactly.
But the years when XRT was its absolute hottest.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas like 88, 89, those years where they were just on fire, where, there were all those alternative bands.
Yep.
And really what got XRT to work with us more than anything was
Money,
their relation. Huh?
money.
Well, uh,
Yeah, you had to pay up.
I'm sure I had to.
XRT meant
Well,
extra revenue tonight. That's what XRT stands for.
of
Continue.
course of course you had to spend, but they wouldn't even let us spend for years.
You had to wear them down.
We had to wear them down, and Material Issue really helped. Because when they started playing Valerie Loves Me and Renee Remains the Same,
All right, Brad. What was the best XRT show that Cubby Bear ever did? Go.
boy, that's hard for me to say.
Smashing Pumpkins.
No, we never did.
No, we
Smash
never
It.
did them.
Never did
And by the way, before I answer that, this Material Issue documentary,
Reissue issue. Yeah.
documentary. I didn't use the word scam. That slipped out. But that documentary, I have not watched the documentary, but I want to just say that when I saw like who they credited on the documentary, and one of those people they credited was Joe Shanahan. What the fuck did Joe Shanahan have to do with? When I knew it was a bullshit documentary? When they don't contact the people that were close to the band. They don't contact the people that helped them get started. And the guy that was roommates with the only talented guy in the band. Okay?
He wrote
every
song. Every song.
Okay? So, it's fine you wrote his coattails for 40 years, whatever it's been. But you make this documentary and, let's have Joe Shanahan on there. Because you can't have somebody honest like me on the documentary. Okay? Because I'd have blown their shit up. Okay? So they put Joe Shanahan on. Material Issue played once at Cabaret Metro years and years after I left.
It was a great show, Brad. It was a great show.
I was at the show. I was there, that was another band that Jeff managed. One Republic.
Oh.
I was at their, I remember
No
going
idea.
to their show at, that guy was a phenomenal singer. I remember going to their show at Metro. But
you digress. Continue.
No, I digress, but Material Issue never played for Joe Shanahan before
He played he played New Year's Eve for us. He probably played Metro twice.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I go back to when they were playing Batteries Not Included. Okay. All right. Isn't that Pequods now?
Okay. You want to go back that far? Hey, Brad.
Yeah.
Let's talk Susie Miller and Lounge Acts. Go.
Susie Miller Lounge Acts was a great venue for Material Issue, and she helped them a tremendous amount.
Throwing Tweety.
Well, listen, I knew Sue way before the Tweety days. Okay. I didn't know Sue anymore when the Tweety days came along.
Sue Miller managed the Cubby Bear before I even knew Brad.
Yes. Sue Miller managed the Cubby Bear. And then the Cubby Bear stopped doing live music. And Sue Miller wasn't there anymore. Because
Brad, tell Mike who Susie Miller is.
Sue Miller is one of the most innovative music minds I've ever met. And she tried to do some really cool stuff at Cubby Bear, but it was before its time. In other words, you couldn't make money off it. Mm-hmm. And George was losing money doing shows with it back in that time with her. Yeah. But the stuff she was booking, she's so cutting edge and talented.
Like what bands?
Uncle Tupelo.
Uncle Tupelo?
I don't remember.
No, that was Tweety's old band. Go.
No, I know. So anyway, long story short, she left Cubby Bear. Her and George had a falling out, but it was more. It wasn't that they didn't get along. It was about that the shows weren't making money.
Yeah.
Okay, and George just didn't want to do music anymore at that point. So then there was time, quite a bit of time in between that and when we eventually started music back up again. In that meantime, she opened up a club of her own called Lounge Acts on Lincoln Avenue, which is now where I think Lincoln Hall is, or I don't.
Right there.
Okay, in that across from the Biograph, and she proceeded at her own club to do all that cool stuff she did and cutting edge stuff she did at Cubby Bear that didn't work in a bigger venue, but worked great in a place that held 150 people.
Yep, absolutely.
So she gave so many people their start there, and she was so talented at what she did. And we were very friendly until I started doing live music at the Cubby Bear. And we were starting to compete for acts.
Brad, do you want to can we take a pause? Can we do a part 2 for next week? You in?
Sure.
Bongo Mike, what do you think?
I think we could do it.
Hey, Brad, should I reach out to Susie and say, hey, Susie?
Absolutely not. Did I not say wonderful things about her?
Absolutely. We'll find out.
No.
Brad Altman, we have so many cool things, and
there's a lot of really good stories.
No, I'd like, listen, there's some guys that I don't ever want to be on a
stage.
That I don't ever want in my life or have anything to do with. Ted Ansani and Mike Zelenko are two of them who in other words, if I came on here and you popped up Mike Zelenko,
shit.
Or
Zelenko? Yeah. I think Zelenko's been on the show, Brad. Should we nix him off?
I didn't say that. I said I don't want to be on the show with him. I don't want to be surprised and be on with somebody that I don't like.
Brad Altman, Bongo Mike. Another great episode of the
Hey, yeah. You know I love you, Pete.
Brad, come on.
So we have a part 2 coming up.
Can I tell you something?
We got a part 2. Go ahead, Brad.
No, I just want to say
that
you will always be one of my all-time favorite people. And
Brad, we grew up.
The way we started.
Yeah, from nothing, from zero
to good friends. And
to
let me tell you,
nightclub venue of the year, Brad.
Huh?
Nightclub venue of the year.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's more that Pete and I were pit against each other from the start. Okay. And we should have been enemies forever.
Yeah.
And it didn't end up that way. And I'm glad it didn't. That's all I'm saying.
See?
Brad, next week, you ready?
Mike Zelenko and Ted Ansani dead to me.
How's the ticker? We good, Brad?
Ticker's good, man. I look okay?
Yeah, you look good. Look at that face. You got
a Bears hat on. Look great.
62 years old. I'm hanging in there.
62? Hold on.
Yeah.